Number 1. Don't sleep over. So, this happened when I just turned 11, so bear with me here. My parents were always very strict with me growing up, most particularly my mom. She was especially weird about letting me sleep over, visit with friends with older male presence in their home. I never understood why. As I was born and raised in Canada, and sleepovers were pretty common with my Western peers, I just figured it was due to the fact that she grew up in a strict Muslim household back home, and men and women would be kept separate for the most part. What I found odd, though, was that she even kept this same energy around male relatives that she wasn't very familiar with, my cousins and even uncles from my father's side. Anyway, so one day I begged both, she and my dad, on my hands and knees to please let me sleep over at my best friend's, let's call her Emma's house. I even stressed that she knew her parents and her younger brother, so there should be no issue with me staying the night just once. She, of course, still disagreed, but after some convincing from my dad, she finally folded. I was so excited. So fast forward to the day of the sleepover. My friend Emma, her little brother, who was a year younger than us, Justin, and I were playing video games in the living room. We had just come in from playing outside in the snow, and I had already noticed a young-looking, attractive older man watching us from the window. So I asked who that was. She said that it was her stepdad's younger brother, who was visiting from LA. I thought this was super cool, and immediately started asking her a bunch of questions about him. I got the vibe that he was some kind of black sheep of her stepdad's family, since she vaguely mentioned he got in trouble a lot in the States. Anyways, so later we're all eating dinner, and he joins us. He sits down next to me at the dinner table and immediately starts showering me with compliments. Keep in mind, I just turned 11, and he was like in his early 30s. He kept on saying how sweet and cute I was, and even pinched my cheek. At this point, Emma's mom and dad started cleaning their throats and sending signals to him that he needs to stop. Honestly, I only just realized this as I got older, and I never even thought anything was wrong at the time. So, that night Emma and I hung out in her bedroom, recording dumb videos on Vine, reading creepypastas, and stuff like that. Eventually, we end up falling asleep on her bed. I wake up in the middle of the night. It was probably like 2 a.m. or something because I had to pee. For some reason, I felt really weird about this. Since it was my first time sleeping away from my home, and I would have to navigate the long, dark hallway to the bathroom. As I'm walking, I hear something shift around in one of the rooms. I brush it off as either being Emma's parents or her brother. I truly forgot about her uncle at this point. So after coming out of the bathroom, I see a figure at the end of the hall, which gives me the biggest heart attack. It was her uncle, and he was gesturing me to come to him. Stupidly, I did, since I thought he just wanted to talk. When I approached him, he says, "I thought it was you, cutie. Why is the little girl awake?" I'm like, what the hell? Even at 11, I was wondering who in their right mind would say something so odd. Before I could respond, he gently tugs on one of my curls and asks if I want to see some pictures in his room. I get really scared, feeling like I was doing something bad, and I tell him I'm not sure if I'm allowed. He just scoffs at me and asks whose permission I need. I laugh nervously because I didn't want to be mean, but in my mind, I'm already seeing the ass whooping I'm going to get if I go into another man's room alone. What's funny is, I didn't even consider how odd it was of a grown man to ask a kid to look at pictures in his room in the middle of the night. I didn't even feel fear or any sense of danger. I just felt a strange feeling in my gut, like I was doing something wrong. He gets tired of my waffling, and he takes my hand, trying to take me to the guest bedroom he was staying in. I pull back, and that's where Emma's younger brother and my friend, Justin, walks out of his bedroom. It turns out he was gaming and watching streams and happened to hear something going on in the hall. Justin looks me dead in the eyes and says my name. "You should probably get back to bed," because his parents would get mad if they found out I was up. I was so grateful and walked to him quickly before diverting to Emma's bedroom, where she was still out cold. Before closing the door, I look over my shoulder to see her uncle just standing there in front of the guest bedroom, watching me in the darkness. I barely slept a wink. The next day, Justin and I never spoke of everything that happened that night before. He just acted very short and somewhat dismissive of his uncle during breakfast, but otherwise acted as if nothing was out of the ordinary. I never told Emma what happened. For some reason, I never told her parents or mine. Unfortunately, I was also just as friendly to her uncle as I was before. He was even blatantly touchy, playing with my hair and squeezing my face. But as usual, I didn't act like anything was wrong. I never told my parents or older sister out of the fear that they would forbid me from ever sleeping out there again. Or worse, my dad would try to beat the guy up. However, I never slept at her house, or ever visited with her until her uncle went back to the States. So creepy, young, pedo bear uncle. Let's not meet. Story number 2. In the woods behind my house. English is not my first language, so I'm sorry if there's any mistakes. This happened to me when I was about 14. It was in 2020, in the cold winter of Canada. At the time, the confinement was obligated. Every 2 days, we would have class at school, else it was online. So after my online class, I had to practice my acting parts for my theater class. Since everyone was at home, I didn't want to bother anyone with my loud voice and cries. So I decided to go into the woods. So you all gotta know that I live in the woods. I don't really have any neighbors, and no one walks in the woods behind my house since it's private property. Anyway, I asked my sister if she wanted to accompany me, but when we got out there, she said she had a weird feeling and said didn't want to come play along anymore, and ran back to the house. So instead I grabbed my dog, which is a pug, and at the time he was 3 years old. Important thing to know about my dog, he can't bark at all, and he still can't to this day. He's so social and cuddly, he would even run away with a kidnapper. So I get down to my property to enter the woods behind the trees. There, I got into the wood path. I know these woods like I know my back pocket. I never got lost. So I was walking forward with my dog. I recorded a video of myself to see what I needed to improve on my acting. That's when I see someone behind me. Of course, I turn back and look at the person. To this day, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but that person was clothed, head to toe, with dirty blankets and dirty coats. Yes, coats. They had a plastic bag, a black one that we use in the restaurants for trash. It was huge. I still remember to this day that vision of the person. I could only see their eyes. In the other hand, they had a sharp-looking object that I couldn't identify. So out of instinct, I started walking faster, because no one ever comes to these woods, especially in a negative 34 degrees Celsius winter. But my dog was not going forward. He was still, and was not moving an inch, fixing her fear on that person, and he starts barking. That's when I knew something was off, because my dog doesn't bark and likes everyone, but at the moment, I could see the situation wasn't safe. So I whistled him, and he walks, but head facing back, and the person starts laughing. As they were laughing, they said, "I'm not scared of dogs." In my head, I was asking myself, why would somebody tell me this? I start walking faster, telling my dog to follow me, and I hear the snow crack. The person is walking faster and starts following me. That was it for me. I picked up my dog and started running. I could hear the stranger running after me. Then, I got to the dead end. There's 3 thoughts going on in my mind. 1, going straight forward between the trees until I find a path. 2, jumping off the snow cliff that's at least a 10 feet high jump. 3, go back on my feet and run for my life. All of these knowing I have to have my dog in my arms. I can't think long enough that I hear the stranger's footsteps on the snow, and I decided to jump off the cliff with the dog in my arms. I was being swallowed by the soft snow, because here in Canada, there can be up to 3 feet tall snow on the floor. I didn't have my snowsuit. I was freezing, and ice was forming on my legs and hands. I thought I was gonna die, but my dog is digging me out. I pick him up again and run towards the second cliff in front of me. I look back, and there I see the stranger for the last time. They had their left hand on their forehead, looking left and right at the horizon, looking for me. They spot me and start walking towards me. I ran as fast as I could, following the path that I knew would lead me to the street in front of my house. I ran for minutes with my dog in my arms and the ice on my leg and the freezing cold. I got back to my house, and I decided to act like nothing happened. Went back into my room, and I stared at the void. I hope I never meet that person again. Number 3. I followed a stranger to his home and almost got myself in trouble. This happened 5 years ago, around January 15th, 2020, right before the pandemic. I'm a guy. I was 19 when it happened, and I was in my second year of college in Paris, studying arts. With a couple of girls in my class, we decided to go to the Da Vinci exhibit at the Louvre. It was an exhibition that is only on display once every few decades. It was advised by one of our professors. Anyways, that day we left school at 5 p.m. and went to a bar nearby before going to the exhibition. I had a few drinks and quickly got tipsy. I was very skinny back then, and I hadn't had anything to eat. Then we took the metro and made it to the Louvre. We had time to see the whole thing and do some sketches of our favorite artwork. Then at 8 p.m., I believe, we left the exhibition to go home. We all went our own ways. I got on the train that would drop me off to my city, and when I sat down, I realized my phone battery was at 18%, and that I had my battery bank, but not the charger. I was annoyed because my phone was the only way I could wake up in the morning, since I no longer had an alarm clock at the time. I remember that I used my phone in class earlier that day for some drawing models, and that I plugged my phone into charge for a bit. So I sent a message on the Messenger class group chat and asked if anyone had saw my charger in the classroom. Some of the classmates would stay in the school for a few hours after our classes of the day, study or keep working on their projects before leaving for the day. And one of them replied with a picture of my charger on the table in the classroom, and a text saying, "I took it with me, and I'll give it back to you tomorrow morning." I thanked them and thought to myself, okay, now how do I make sure that I'll wake up on time tomorrow morning? Of course, it was the only one that I had since all the other ones were no longer working, and I was the only one at home to have this brand, so I couldn't even use my mom's or my brother's. I asked the dude who was sitting next to me if he had a charger that I could use, if he's not getting off the train anytime soon, so that I could charge my phone for as long as possible until one of us gets off. He replied, "No, I don't. But check at the next station if the store is still open, so you can buy one." When we reached the next station, we could see the store was already closed. The store was on the platform. Then the guy turned to me and said, "Oh, it's closed. But I have one at home that you can use. I live right next to the station." I was still a little bit dizzy from the alcohol that I had a few hours earlier, and I was getting tired, so my reflexes weren't really on point at this specific time, and so I answered, "Okay," instead of simply asking somebody else. In my head, it was like him going to his house, bringing the charger, letting my phone charge for a little bit with the battery bank, then giving it back to him and going home. But even this scenario wouldn't have made much sense. The guy is supposed to get off 3 stations before mine. When we reached the station, we both got off. It was January, so it was already completely dark outside at the time. The guy does a follow me. At this moment, I had this horrible feeling saying, don't follow him. Go back on that train and go home. And I quickly got some kind of anxiety attack and simply just let myself go. So I went and followed him. I knew deep down that what I was doing was completely stupid and senseless, but I felt like I wasn't myself. I was totally stressed out and anxious and went with him. We exited the train station and walked to the streetcar station right next to it and got on the streetcar. The fear was rising as we were getting there, and it just kept getting worse and worse. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? I just leave. Something's not right. Just leave and go home. But I couldn't. I was petrified. At this point, it was like I couldn't even control myself. I think that guy was talking to me this whole time, and I was just nodding to what he was saying. I wasn't even paying attention to what he was saying. From what I can remember, this man is taller than me and much stronger than me, and he had a backpack with cartoonish-looking cow heads all over it. We got off the streetcar at the closest stop. We walk up to the adjacent street, maybe 100 to 150 meters into it, and we made it to the front of a gate. He opened the gate with his fob, and I stayed in the street, in front of the gate, as he crossed it. He turned to me and said, "What are you doing? Come with me." In my head, I was like, no, and I crossed the gate and followed him. This was the entrance of an apartment complex that he lived in. After the gate, there was a long trail leading up to a very large patio with multiple other trails leading to 3 different buildings within the complex. It was nighttime, so I couldn't see much, even though there was a few floodlight poles in the patio. We walked up to the building, which was at the very end of the patio, the furthest one from the exit of the complex. Then again in my head, I was seeing him throw the charger through the window to me so I could use it, It still sounds silly and makes no sense at all. And then again, I followed him, following him into the building. We went up the stairs to the second floor, and he went inside the apartment. Once inside, he said, "You can sit down. I'll be right there." As he turned the TV on, gave me a phone charger that was in the night table drawer, and he went to the bathroom. I sat down and thought to myself, well, now you're in deep shit. I plugged my phone in. My phone battery was now at 9, and my phone was not charging correctly. I noticed after a few seconds that the charger was ripped, and I had to tilt my phone and the charger in a specific way for it to charge correctly. I looked around me and saw that the apartment was very small and messy. It was basically just a bedroom with a small hallway between the entrance and the main space, with a door to the bathroom in the hallway. There was a corner of the room that was being used as a kitchen. The bed was the only thing that I could sit on. It was unmade, and there was a lot of unfolded clothes and clutter of the furniture and on the floor. After a minute or so, he came out of the bathroom and came sitting right next to me on the bed. I still had my jacket and shoes and my backpack on my back. I played it cool, but was terrified inside. He asked me if I wanted anything to drink or eat, and I declined and said that I would be leaving soon anyways, because I needed to wake up early in the morning. He then replied, "You can stay overnight if you want to." And I responded, "No, thank you." I was sitting on the part of the bed that was closer to the nightstand, and he was between me and the hallway leading to the entrance door. At this point, he was just watching TV, and I was looking straight in front of me, just staring at the wall, not moving an inch, just petrified. And just like that, out of nowhere, he put his hand on my right thigh. I typically hate physical contact, even with my own family and friends. It was too much for me to handle. So I called my mother. She already knew that I wasn't going to go home right after school because of the exhibition. I was trying to buy some time while I was trying to figure something out to just go without him, potentially trying to prevent me from leaving. So I was talking with my mother, just telling her how my day was and my time at the Louvre, and I told her that I was on my way home. I managed to keep my composure so she couldn't tell that something was wrong. The last thing I wanted was to worry her, panicking, and that the guy would act up even more. After a few minutes, my mom cut me off and told me that she was getting sleepy and that she was going to bed, so she said good night and she hung up. I was thinking, oh shit. I looked to my right at the guy. He still had his hand on my thigh. Guy was just straight up masturbating while staring at me. I locked eyes with him for 2 seconds, and suddenly my heart started racing. I was terrified. I almost cried. I could hardly breathe. I called my dad, and thankfully he picked up on the phone. My parents aren't together anymore, and I was living with my mom, so my father didn't know about the visit to the Louvre. I did just like I did with my mother, and told my dad how my day was and what I saw at the exhibition. And I kept finishing most of my sentences with "Dad," so that the guy knew who I was talking with, and potentially preventing him from doing anything crazier. Obviously, because of the fear, I was unable to talk without breathing heavily. At some point, my dad asked me why I was breathing like that, and I said that I was walking fast to catch my next train. And I told my dad, "Okay, Dad, I'm gonna have to run, so I don't miss the train. The next one will be there before a while." That was obviously a lie. "Please don't hang up. Stay on the phone." And he said, "Okay." I quickly got up without unplugging the charger. It unplugged when I got up and started walking towards the exit. I said, "Gotta go," to the guy. I pressed the doorknob to open the door, but it was locked. I didn't even notice it when I walked in. I panicked even more, and the guy got up, walked up to me, unlocked the door, and opened it. Then he said, "Come back anytime." And he licked my neck. He had left his arm in the crack, so I had bent to walk beneath it and out of the apartment, and he spanked me as I was walking out of the apartment. Once I was outside of the apartment, I started running. I ran down the stairs, even skipped a few steps, ran out of the building, ran across the patio, all the way to the gates. I was finally out of that complex, but I still ran all the way to the streetcar stop. I was just hoping that he wasn't following me, or no one that he might know, or that he might have told about me was looking for me or coming after me. Thankfully, the streetcar arrived right when I reached the stop. The streetcar left, and my father was still on the phone. I said to him, Okay, I'm on the train now. I'll let you know when I'll be home. He told me to be careful on the way, and that's when he'll be waiting on my message. Then he hung up. From that moment, I felt relieved, but couldn't stop thinking about what if I did not have the idea of calling my parents, and what if he went crazier and actually tried to do anything more? Or what if he just never let me out of his home, or just that someone else was there with him? Literally anything could have happened to me. After all, I was in his apartment, in his universe. He could have done anything to me. Now I only go by trusting my gut, and that if I sense anything fishy, I will most definitely listen to my body, pay attention to signs, and, of course, never talk to strangers in public transit. It was almost 9:30 p.m. by the time I went back on the train that would drop me off to my city. I made it home by 10:30. Everyone was asleep. I let my dad know that I made it home. He dropped a response. Okay, thank you and good night. My phone battery was still very low, slightly over 20% I think. I went to bed, but couldn't sleep for hours. I woke up the morning after, went to school, and my classmate brought me my phone charger, and I went on my day. I only told one of my closest friends about it, and a year later. When I think about it now, it kinda makes me laugh because of how stupid it sounds, but this truly was the scariest thing I've ever experienced.